Hi, it's Brian Bennett, author of Explicit Leadership and also founder of Multiply Leaders, a resourcing and coaching organization that is committed to helping leaders unlock their potential in the name of Jesus. And I wanted to explore 7 ways that you can lead change in a culture if you're not the lead leader. And so, if there's an issue, if there's unhealth in the culture, your team culture and organizational culture, maybe a home culture, here's 7 ways that you can affect real change and lead change in that culture without being the lead leader. Because sometimes we make the false assumption that if we're not the lead leader, then we can't change the culture, but we can. Now it is harder work, and I'll talk about that at one point in our video today. But it doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means it's going to be harder. We're going to have to build more influence. We're going to have to lead smarter. We're going to have to lead with a depth of love and a commitment and an endurance that's just going to be tough. So here's the 7 things. The first one is to simply live it. If you want to lead change, you must live the change that you're seeking to lead. So if you want to lead change in a culture where people don't pretend like there's not issues in the room, but they have the hard conversations, then have the hard conversations. You've got to live that out. If you want to be a part of a culture that's encouraging, kind of the explicit leader idea, where people are celebrated, believed in, and affirmed, then you've got to be the one who speaks encouragement. You've got to be the one who tells others that you believe in them. You've got to live that change. And here's the second thing to build change in a culture if you're not the lead leader is after you live that change for a while, then eventually others will look to you and you'll have the opportunity to model it. So first we live it, and then eventually when we earn the right, because that's what leadership's about, it's about earning others' influence, then we can model it in our leadership. So when others look to us, they've seen that change in us, they've seen us live it out long enough that they then look to us and we can model that change. As we have the opportunity to model that change, that means that eyes are on us and we just continue to live out what it is that we think is healthy for the organization. The third thing is extraordinarily powerful, and there's few things that are as powerful as celebrating others. And that's the third one is when you see others living out the value, living out the change in the culture that you long to see in your organization, in your team, in your home, then you've got to celebrate it, right? You've got to call it out and you got to say, hey, John, I see what you're doing, or I saw what you did yesterday, or I heard about what you did in that meeting, or I heard how you encouraged, or I heard how you did that, and I just want to encourage you. Or Sarah, you did such a good job leading the meeting, the way that you listened to others, the way that you didn't just talk over others, but the way that you brought all the best ideas on the team, or the way that you spoke encouragement. I thought that was phenomenal the other day. So celebrate others. When someone does something well, when they succeed, if you want more of it, you've got to celebrate it. Whatever we celebrate, we're going to get more of. So the third thing is to celebrate others when they're living out the values, especially the values that aren't there that you long to see in the culture. Here's number 4 is to create it in your area. If you can't create it in your area, which means first living it, then modeling it, and as you celebrate others, eventually they're going to take ownership of it. But if we can't create it in our area, then we simply can't expect others to create it in the larger organization. We can't just point the finger. Leaders don't just complain, and they don't just point the finger and blame. Leaders take responsibility for what they can take responsibility for, and they use their power to create healthy change in the organization or in others' lives. They lift others up through their using their power to do that. So create what you can create in your area. Whatever you have power over, whatever you have responsibility over, make sure you do it in your own department, in your own team. Do what you can with what you have and make sure you're creating pockets of health because eventually those pockets will spill over into large organization. When others see you live it, when they see you model it, when they see you celebrate others, eventually they'll own it. You'll create a pocket of health, and then that value will start spilling over as others start having contact with other teams and other leaders in the organization, and you'll see the ideas start to spill over and spread. Here's number 5 is build influence with your peers. You can't lead culture change without building greater influence. Because to lead culture change when you're not the lead leader, and that's what this is all about. You're not number one. You're not the lead leader. If you're not the lead leader, you have to lead sideways, and then you ultimately have to lead up. So build influence with your peers. And I've talked in another video about how to build influence. There's actually a video called How to Build Influence. So check that video out on how to do it. But you must build influence, and your peers must trust your motivation. If they don't trust your motivation, if it's all about you, if it's all about promoting yourself, then don't even try to do it because you're not going to be able to change the culture because others will look at you and say. He's just all about himself. She's just all about herself. You've got to have a motivation that others can actually buy into and believe in because it's bigger than you. It's for the sake of others. It's for the sake of the organization. It's for the glory of God. So lead with your peers by building greater influence, and check out that video on how to build influence. Number 6 is this, is lead up with wisdom. So ultimately, you have to lead up. If you want to change the culture, you have to lead up. You can create sideways change and downward change, and you can create pockets of change, but you've got to be careful that you're not being subversive to the lead leader. You got to get the lead leader in on the value and talk to them about the importance of it and why you think it matters to the mission, because it's got to matter to the mission. You got to tie it into why this value of encouragement or honesty or caring more, deepening relationships, whatever value you think needs to happen, more accountability in the organization. You've got to talk to the lead leader early, and you've got to do it with wisdom and with gentleness. Right? You've got to come with a posture of humility. You've got to pay attention to what attitude you're bringing into the room, what energy you're bringing into the room with your boss, what perspectives you're bringing into the room. Because when you start talking to your lead leader about this value that you long to see in the organization, that you believe will help the organization accomplish the mission, you've got to talk with wisdom, and you got to lead up with wisdom. How hard do you push? How often do you have the conversation? Those are wisdom questions, right? Those are questions that require great discernment, great understanding, a lot of maturity, and a lot of experience. So you got to lead up with wisdom, which means your boss has to see your motivation. He has to see it's about the large organization. Your boss has to know that you've got their back, that the lead leader has to know that you're going to fight for the health of the organization for his sake and for the sake of the organization. He's got to know that you're not going to undermine him. He's got to know that you want what's best for him and for the organization. And then you've got to think through, depending on who your boss is, who your lead leader is, what their temperament is, how they lead. You've got to think through how best to influence them, how often to have that conversation, how hard you push, when you have the conversation. And if you bump into your boss and you bump up and you realize, man, that's a stone ceiling. He or she has no interest in what I have to say about creating a culture of encouragement or creating a culture of greater accountability or creating a more relational culture on our team or creating a culture that's more locked in and dialed into the mission, then you just simply got to ask yourself, can I work here? Is this a place where I can work in and I can, some things you might say, absolutely, that's a value. I wish it was different, but I can absolutely work here. And other things you might say, I don't know if I can. Here, don't make that decision on your own. Talk to others. Just please don't make that decision on your own. Invite others, wise leaders, not just yes people, but wise leaders who are going to speak into you. Here's number 7 is be patient and walk humbly. When you're seeking to create culture change and you're not the lead leader in a home, in an organization, on a team, you've got to lead with humility and with patience because it's going to take great endurance. Change, especially deep culture change, it doesn't happen overnight. So you've got to make sure that you are leading for the long run, that you're not just leading for the short term, but you're committed to the long haul. And if you're a leader who believes in something, you believe in a value, you believe in seeing the culture change, you think it's going to help everyone and lift everyone up and accomplish the mission, and something has to shift in this because it matters to the mission, then you've got to do it. But you've got to do it with endurance. So don't be passive. You can lead. Grab on today, use your influence, cultivate influence, and use it to change the culture wherever you are for the better, for the sake of others, for the glory of God.